So you mean to tell me that in Jordan Love's first year starting in week 18, the final week of the season, he's got a win and you're in scenario to get into the playoffs against the Green Bay Packers' most historic rival, when his predecessor just 1 year prior was unable to do the same? You're telling me all the consequences lined up just right for Jordan Love to have that in week 18 of year one? And then you expect me to think that there aren't scriptwriters? Mm-hmm. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews, where I'm your host, John Delray. Today, of course, talking about the momentous matchup between the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. For the Packers, win and you're in. For the Bears, who cares? Because you're already done. They are eliminated from the playoffs. For the Packers, this game means everything. And yet, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, it doesn't mean more to Chicago, but boy, do they care a whole awful lot. So we're going to go over the injury report. We're going to talk about what teams we actually want to win or lose for the Packers this weekend, as well as take a look at the Chicago Bears and how they've actually been able to surge as of late and kind of save this year's record, even if they're not going to the playoffs. So let's start off with that injury report. First of all, with the outs for Green Bay, that would be two individuals, one, A.J. Dillon and Rudy Ford. A.J. Dillon, it was clarified in Matt LaFleur's press conference that it doesn't actually have a lot to do with the thumb, that he's out because of the stinger that he sustained. And the doubtful category is Isaiah McDuffie. Questionable would be Christian Watson. He did not practice today, which made a whole lot of people really, really worried, really fast. But the reality is that this was kind of a planned off day for him. He had 2 days of practice that were very beneficial. Now they're going to see where he's at Sunday. Certainly sounds encouraging. Preston Smith and Elton Jenkins, they both returned to practice today. They both look on the positive side of questionable as well. Then you've got Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. By all accounts, they look good to go. And then you've got Luke Tenuta, Luke Musgrave, and Emmanuel Wilson. Why I'm lumping them together is because all three of them would need to have a roster spot created for them, given that they're all on IR, in order to come back into this game. So certainly not an insurmountable huddle, especially when it comes to Emmanuel Wilson. It looks like he's health-wise good to go. He didn't really receive any type of injury designation in the practice reports besides just questionable, but it's not necessarily declaring limiteds or anything like that for him anymore. It's just if the Packers want them to play, they got to create room on the roster to do so. And I got to say, with A.J. Dillon being out, kind of feels like Emmanuel Wilson's chances of getting activated and playing this game just went a lot higher. Taking a look at the Bears side of things, out would be wide receiver Darnell Mooney. Doubtful, Jalen Johnson, the Bears' #1 corner and their PFF highest graded defender on the year. We're going to be talking more about him later, but he's having a sensational year. That's a massive loss for the Bears. And then in the questionable category, Kyler Gordon, Khalil Herbert, Cole Kmet, Lucas Patrick, and Patrick Scale. It is noteworthy, of course, that both Cole Kmet and Patrick Scale both did practice in full today, which certainly puts them on the positive side of questionable. Now, overall, how is the Bears roster different than it was when these two teams faced off in week one? And I decided to kind of lump this in with the injuries here because it is kind of related. They acquired Montez Sweat earlier in the year, and he just happened to really take the place of Yannick Ngakoue, who's on IR, and really their only massive contributor to find himself on IR this year for the Bears, which is that's nice that they don't have any of these season-ending injuries for them. So I do want to offer just a quick rooting guide, quick thoughts on playoff implications before we totally dive into the Bears side of things. One, for Green Bay to make the playoffs, very, very simple. Win, and you're in. That's it. Now, in order to get the 6th seed, they must win, plus the 49ers must beat the Rams. And both teams are resting a lot of their starters. Matthew Stafford's not going to play. Christian McCaffrey's not going to play. This may come down to a depth battle, in which case the 49ers, I would think, stand a very good chance. So if the Packers win and the 49ers win, Packers become the 6th seed. If the Packers lose to the Bears, however, they will need the Cardinals to beat the Seahawks, the Lions to beat the Vikings, and either the Panthers to beat the Bucs or the Falcons to beat the Saints. They would need all three of those things to occur. Just for looking ahead purposes, let's talk playoffs just for a brief second. if the Packers maintain the 7 seed, right? So that would mean that they win and then the Rams win, or they wind up losing and then all that other stuff happens. Okay. They maintain the 7 seed. They're probably traveling to Dallas for their first playoff game, assuming status quo. If they are the 6th seed, then a game against Detroit in Detroit becomes significantly more likely for wild card weekend. And in order for either one of those things not to be true, we're looking at some large upset having to occur, like the Giants over Philly, in conjunction with the Commanders over Dallas. So, like, a bunch of stuff has to happen. It probably is going to be 7 seed, Dallas, 6 seed, Detroit. But before you worry about any of that, just beat Chicago. And then, of course, we always want the Jets to lose. We always want the Bills to lose because that just makes draft compensation better for the trades that the Packers have pulled off. So let's talk the last time that these two teams played. In spite of Chicago saying all offseason that this year was going to be different, that no longer, since Aaron Rodgers isn't there, is Green Bay this massive threat. No more will they completely dominate Chicago. And then in Soldier Field, the Packers walked in and beat the Bears 38-20. Love made his debut as quarterback one to the tune of 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Aaron Jones, 140 yards from scrimmage, 2 touchdowns. Chicago, on the other hand, had a very fair amount of difficulty actually moving the ball. Fields passed the ball for a total of 216 yards and only 1 touchdown, adding 59 yards on the ground. Other than that, Herbert, Foreman, Johnson combined for 19 carries and 63 yards. Brand new superstar wideout DJ Moore had a whopping 2 catches for 25 yards. But the reason why I'm not going to dwell on this matchup a lot, really talk about it much at all, is because even Matt LaFleur acknowledged that for this coming Week 18 matchup, you would have difficulty finding a matchup that is more different from Week 1 to Week 18, given that both teams are so radically different themselves. The Bears have progressed a ton this year. We know all about the Packers' progress. But the Bears on both sides of the ball are a very, very different team and do some different things than they did in Week 1. So let's take a look at those Chicago Bears. Currently sitting with a record of 7-9, including 5-3 at home and 2-6 on the road. They've gotten wins against the Commanders, Raiders, Panthers, Vikings, Lions, Cardinals, and Falcons, with losses against the Packers, Buccaneers, Chiefs, Broncos, Vikings, Chargers, Saints, Lions, and Browns. Most notably, the Bears. Yeah, the Bears have won 4 of their last 5. And they, as I mentioned, have experienced this kind of large resurgence, especially offensively. And they've put up at least 27 points in 3 of the last 4 weeks. And really, since Eberflus kind of took over the defense and made it really round into form, they're top 10 team in a lot of categories, including DVOA, rush defense. We're going to get to more of that in a little bit. But this Chicago Bear team, it's no joke. Even with Jalen Johnson missing, this defense is quality. The offense, while not necessarily the most explosive unit in the world, they can move the ball. Let's take a look at how. So in looking at the Chicago Bears offense in the last 3 weeks, I'm only talking the last 3 weeks, they get 186 yards per game. That's 26th in the NFL. They happen to be 21st in pass attempts over the same time frame. Rushing offense, they get 176.6 yards per game on the ground. That's second in the NFL, 176 yards per game on the ground. And they're also second in attempts in that same time frame as well. In terms of points per game over the last 3 weeks, they're sitting right at 27, which is tied for 9th in the NFL. So let's talk Justin Fields, right? 626 yards rushing to this point on the season, which just happened to also come along with 10 fumbles. In terms of throwing, somehow his worst portion of the field is actually intermediate throws, which is absurdly weird for quarterbacks. His adjusted completion percentage over the intermediate stretch is 51%. And he throws there for about 13% of his throws, which again is on the underside of your average quarterback. And that 51% adjusted completion percentage is actually a little bit worse than his deep adjusted completion percentage, which sits at 52%. It doesn't make a lot of sense. A staggering 59% of Justin Fields' pass attempts have either been behind the line of scrimmage or within 10 yards of the line. Now, in that area of the field, behind and in front, like just within a little bit of the field, 10 yards, they are pretty good at making those plays, completion percentage in roughly the mid-80s. But basically what you've got here is you've got Justin Fields, a running quarterback who can be accurate in short spurts or short distances, I should say. You've got Fields, you've got DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and a three-headed monster at running back in an offense that runs a ton, passes short, and only about one of every 6 pass attempts actually makes it 10 or 20 yards in the air. Plus, I should point out from Peter Bukowski, put this out on Twitter, host of Locked On Packers, he put out this tweet that they kind of give the bag away with what they're doing. He puts out on Twitter, the Bears have big-time run-pass tells by formation. When they're under center, they run over 70% of the time. It's over 90% on third down. They don't throw it much overall, but when they do, it's usually from the gun. So it kind of tells you right there that the Bears offense, not the most explosive, not exactly the most complex either. But with their run game, it can be efficient. It's not like putting up 27 points per game over the last 3 weeks is because they're completing 60-yard passes time and time again. No, it's actually that they've just been remarkably efficient and are very, very good at running the ball. Defensively, let's take a look at the Chicago Bears. As I mentioned, they're top 10 in a number of good categories. Passing defense is not one of them. Over the last 3 games, they give up 244.7 yards per game through the air. That's 23rd in the NFL. Just as a little tidbit, that number raises up to 278 on the road. That's not for the last 3 weeks. That's over the entire season, giving up 278 yards through the air on the road, which they just happened to be on Sunday. Rushing defense, over the last 3 weeks, they give up 85.3 yards per game. That's 7th in the NFL. Over the duration of the full season, they happen to be the number 1 run defense in the NFL. And by the way, I want to put this out there. Chicago is 23rd in passing defense and 7th in rushing over the last 3 weeks. Green Bay, 28th in passing and 28th in passing and 8th in rushing. So they're very, very oddly similarly ranked in terms of these are 2 teams over the last 3 weeks that have given up a fair number of yards through the air while actually doing a good job against the run. In terms of points per game given up by the Bears defense, they're tied for 3rd in the NFL at only 17.7. That happens to be a pretty big deviation from Green Bay, which sits in the high 20s. The Bears have improved offensively as the season goes on, and the defense matches. The addition of Montez Sweat has in several ways been exactly what this defense needed to truly sync together. And again, similarly to Green Bay, the better the front is, the better the secondary seemingly functions. But here's the thing. In this particular matchup, Jalen Johnson, deemed doubtful. Kyler Gordon, another one of their 3 starting corners, questionable. And I know I said I would come back to Johnson, so here it is. He's not only their number 1 PFF-rated defender, but he's tied for the team lead with 4 interceptions, and when targeted, has a QB rating of only 33.3, one of the top numbers in the NFL. Tyreek Stevenson, the only one of their top 3 corners that's actually fully healthy for this game, he's giving up a QB rating of 98.6. The difference between, or the drop-off in ability from Jalen Johnson to their other corners is massive, and that's nothing to really insult or demean Stevenson, who's having a great year in his own right. It's just Jalen Johnson has been just that good, and it's hard to overstate how much of a loss this is for the Chicago defense. And if you're wondering, why are the Chicago Bears so good against the run? Well, for one, adding Montez Sweat helped a lot. He's routinely been one of the best edge rushers who happens to be one of the best run defenders in the league for years. And now he's paired up with TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, Jack Sanborn, Jaquan Brisker out of the secondary, who's a very good run defense safety with a missed tackle rate under 10%. But also Terrell Smith, a young cornerback who's a little bit down the depth chart, but he's very good at defending the run. He's logged 14 stops this season on the secondary, and he also has a missed tackle percentage under 10. I think it's safe to say that the Bears are a pretty good tackling team on the whole, and they've got run-focused players who truly key in on it, and they're going to stay a good run defense team as long as Eberflus is in charge and their personnel matches. The key for Green Bay isn't necessarily to try to run 40 times in this game or necessarily have even success running the ball. but more so to beat their banged up secondary. Let's take a look at a couple supplemental stats here. In terms of sacks, the Chicago Bears get 2.7 sacks per game. It's tied for 12th in the NFL for the last 3 weeks. Getting sacked, 2.3, tied for 15th. Green Bay, just a little tidbit, happy little fun fact. Green Bay is tied for second, only getting sacked once per game. Turnover margin for the Chicago Bears is at +1 per game over the last 3. Penalties, both teams are deadlocked at 4.7 per game. Plays per game, Chicago is actually first in the NFL, getting off 69.7 plays per game. And with special teams, they've got a PFF grade of 77.8, which put them at 18th in the NFL. So what are the keys to victory against the Chicago Bears? And one is just very Green Bay specific. It's not even anything Chicago's going to try to do to you. It's all just what Green Bay is going to do. And it's basically all the new cars are ready to race, but be conservative rolling them out. Green Bay is arguably healthier now than they've really been at any point in the year. And my concern here is that the offense is already cooking. And now you've got more than you've known what to do with in weeks. So I'm totally fine with bringing some kind of wrinkle. But like as a for instance, I know a lot of beat reporters in the locker room today were asking around, especially Kraft and Musgrave, saying, this is really, if Musgrave plays, one of the first times all year that not only are both of you healthy, and they didn't say this, but this is what they were getting at. Not only are both of you healthy, but both of you are actually competent and kind of know what you're doing in the frame of the offense. So might we see some new stuff? And there was multiple people in the locker room just kind of aglow with the idea of what special 12 personnel the Packers could suddenly roll out for one of the first times really ever with such capable and athletic tight ends. But this isn't necessarily the game to rewrite the playbook. That's what I'm saying. And even with someone like Watson, who Matt LaFleur relies on quite a bit in the playbook, but he's coming back from his first month off. We've seen this pattern from Matt LaFleur before of trusting guys who've done it before, even if it was a while ago, and then replacing guys who have been productive in the immediacy. And so I'm all good with some wrinkles. But don't rewrite the playbook from the span of the last month because it's actually working. And now's not the time to call an audible and do something different. A wrinkle, not a rewrite. Key number 2, keep it all in front of you. Yes, Green Bay does struggle with running quarterbacks. This is not new, nor is it a mystery. And I would even argue that more so Green Bay struggles with not necessarily run-first quarterbacks, but they struggle with pass-first quarterbacks who happen to be very, very nimble. But the thing is, with running quarterbacks, and I'm going to put Justin Fields in the category of running quarterback, is while they are dangerous and frustrating, and they're going to get theirs, they also don't necessarily win all the time. See, I have no problem allowing Justin Fields to run for 100 yards in this game if he only passes for 150. This is one game where keep it all in front of you actually makes a world of sense. With Devondre Campbell back, that means Quay Walker could be utilized in a spy role. I don't mind that for him at all. Because we know that one of the deficiencies at times in Quay's game is when he has to decision-make and read, right? So don't give him a lot to read. Just say, hey, follow that guy. Plus, with Chicago's running backs and how efficient they are at running the ball, keep everything in front. I'm not going into this game terrified of DJ Moore. Even Mooney's out. I'm not worried about them throwing the ball between 10 and 20 yards, which statistically, they're not great at. What I am worried about is them doing some kind of screen. Fields getting loose, right? Allowing Fields to have a Kaepernick-esque type day from years ago and run for 250 yards. No, this is not a game to over-pursue and go get the quarterback. This is a game to stay in your lane. And if they happen to get 4 yards, cool, let it happen. I don't mind giving up a bunch of yards, but the defense cannot break here. In other words, this perfectly aligns with what Joe Barry does. This game has got Joey Badass written all over it. So this is one of those few games where the Packers' defensive philosophy actually matches up. Do it, and it's full effect. And by the way, and I guess I shouldn't say perfect match for the defensive philosophy because we don't need to play safeties 30 yards back against Chicago. So, I mean, we can bring that up. I just mean the notion of keeping everything in front of you. And then number 3, let them throw the kitchen sink, but don't be shocked by it. See, the Chicago Bears are playing their Super Bowl. Their players have talked about Green Bay all week. DJ Moore put out a tweet a few weeks ago about Green Bay. We've got Kyle Brandt on Good Morning Football offering his full soliloquy to Justin Fields about how important it is that he beat Green Bay to become Chicago's icon. See, because for the Chicago Bears, that's kind of what it takes. Considering that Jordan Love is putting up a better statistical season than any quarterback has ever had in the history of the Chicago Bears, they could potentially view this as cementing yourself as an icon for winning a regular season game. Green Bay, on the other hand, is playing for something bigger. Because even as Mike McCarthy said years ago, we don't hang division banners here. And that's kind of a little bit of a concern too, though. Like, this is really a tale of two coins because Chicago's going to be fired up. Getsy's got nothing to lose calling plays. They may go against tendencies. He may empty the playbook. Eberflus isn't really going to care. Like, they're going to send everybody, right? They want to punish Green Bay. And last year, it was a similar sentiment from Detroit. They wanted to beat Green Bay, keep them out of the playoffs. That was the crowning achievement of their year, right? And Green Bay decided, well, we're not going to be bothered by that. And they really did attempt for unbothered. And kind of what they did instead was apathetic. Then they got run over by a Detroit team that looked like they cared a lot more. See, but this is where I'm in conflict because I'm not sure I want Green Bay to match the intensity level. Act like this is your Super Bowl because young teams make mistakes that way. Instead, what I'm going to say is I think Jordan Love has the right mentality. Internal focus, internal motivation, wanting to be better than last year, wanting to prove the doubters wrong. And yet it has absolutely nothing to do with Chicago in any way. Let them focus on their opponent. You focus on you. And just be ready for any of the weird crap they're going to throw at you. Because this is one game where they very well might. Do better than last year's squad, and you make the playoffs. And frankly, right now, it's all that really matters. As for my final thoughts here, I don't think the Packers let it happen again. I really don't. The Jalen Johnson news for Chicago today was huge. I was concerned coming into this week, and I do still have some reservations, but ultimately, coming into this week, I was very concerned. The Bears have won a nice string of games lately, as have the Packers, but still, Bears are putting up some real points lately, and the Packers defense is whatever it is some weeks. And the Bears defense is suddenly top 10 and Green Bay's offense is humming. Like, the things match up here. This is a good matchup. But I just can't believe in my heart of hearts that Green Bay is going to let this happen again. And yeah, that Jalen Johnson news is really big. Chicago's got some massive injuries, while Green Bay happens to actually be getting healthier as they get closer to what is hopefully the playoffs. Packers, 34. They find a way to beat Chicago's secondary, put up some points. Packers, 34. Bears, 26. In a field goal heavy bend but don't break performance for Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears offense. So there you have it. The Packers advance to the playoffs by taking down the Chicago Bears. I'll see you on Sunday for the watch party. 3:25 Central will be here with playoffs on the line. Thanks so much for joining me here at Lombardi Time Brews. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you Sunday. And as always, go Pack, go.